Good evening. Good evening. I come to you as Magic in Mind. I'm going to be talking to you today about water spirits and gates between worlds. So as you are arriving, if you're joining me here live, I'd love to know what comes to your mind when you think about water spirits. What are the first things that come to your mind? I'm going to read an extract of a poem to you while you have a little bit of a think about that. This is by Yeats, by W.B. Yeats. Where the wandering water gushes from the hills above Glencar, in pools among the rushes that scarce could bathe a star, we seek for slumbering trout, and whispering in their ears, give them unquiet dreams, leaning softly out from ferns that drop their tears over the young streams. Come away, O human child, to the waters and the wild, with a fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than you can understand. And that's from The Stolen Child by W.B. Yeats. It's one of the later verses, and I would very much recommend you reading that poem if you find some of that beautiful. I've known that for a long time, and I've listened to song versions of it, and it's a very wistful poem, and it's got a lot of beauty in it, and there's an allure from the water spirits, and a danger, a risk that comes with them. That's why I asked you the question, when I talk about water spirits, what comes to your mind? And one of the things that I find challenging with this poem by Yeats, much as I love it, much as it's beautiful, is that it's polarizing. It's polarizing because the child is being asked to decide, essentially, so stay in the human world. And as the water spirits say repeatedly, they'll say, the world is more full of weeping than you can understand. And it's almost like, come and retain your innocence. And Suzanne, you've talked about the water babies. And that is I remember watching that as a child. And that is really fascinating, isn't it? It's this sort of coming from innocence. It's really the cruel world of humans. And the water spirits say, come away, and you'll be safe with us. But we all know, they're not really safe. It's not where they belong in some ways, is what's suggested. You've got the human world on one side, and then you've got the world of the water spirits on the other. It's like the wild world and the tamed world, you might say, that the human child is being sort of asked to decide upon, and there's this lure that comes with them. And Tracy said, hello from Southeast Australia. Water spirits are playful, magical beings that live in our majestic rivers and waterways. Remember and honour them. Yes, and this is one of the things that we're going to be exploring, Tracy, is this journey from the sense of water spirits as being majestic, powerful, playful parts of the land, and this place of danger and possibility. And Esther's thinking of mermaids when thinking water spirits, but they can be tricky. Yeah, there's a tricksiness about them as well, isn't there? There is a tricksiness about them. So I'm going to share with you 3 personal experiences that I've had of working with water spirits. I don't know if it's that my sun rune is Largus, the rune of water, and I've always sort of had this affinity with water. I've had lots of experiences with water spirits, but I wanted to share 3 of them with you. I mentioned one of them when I was telling people about the live. And Rennie, you're saying that you're not seeing the video. Is anybody else? Let me know if you're not seeing the video. I'm probably going to carry on if you can hear the sound okay. But it looks as if everybody else is able to hear the sound. So the first one I alluded to when I was telling you about this live that I was going to be doing, and it was I was a little girl. My mum was pregnant at the time with my younger sister, which was quite heavily pregnant by this time, and we were at an outdoor swimming pool that she was a member of. It was a long time ago, and it was this big outdoor swimming pool, and it was a curved pool. So you would have the shallow end, and then it curved around, and there was the deep end, and everyone was in the shallows. It was a family day out, and my mum had said to someone, well, look after Maggie while I'm just gonna have a bit of a rest, as you do. And I went off, I walked along the side of the swimming pool, and I remember walking along and this feeling of being in the trees around me and the blue of the water. I sort of lost. I wasn't worried, I wasn't worried that everyone else had gone, and the water was calling to me. The lure of the siren song, says Esther. I'm glad the video's perfect. Thank you, Suzanne. And I remember the moment where I put my foot onto the step down into the deep end. And I remember the feel of the wood. They were wooden steps, and how surprisingly slippery it was. And I remember my foot sliding across the step. I don't remember falling in, but I remember going down to the bottom. What I do remember after that sensation of my foot slipping was looking down at the bottom of the swimming pool and seeing at the bottom of the swimming pool an octopus. And it was a painted octopus. It was like a cartoon octopus. It was friendly, and it was moving. So although it was painted, it was animated. It was sort of maroony colour, these huge eyes. And it was waving its tentacles at me and saying, come and play. And it winked really slowly at me. And I loved that octopus. I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to play with this octopus. I do not remember the moment when my mum, who had realised, hold on, I've just got a feeling, the mum feeling. I know someone else is supposed to be looking after Maggie, but I don't feel okay about this. So where's Maggie? Where's Maggie? Where is she? Obviously, I was unaware of this. I was unaware of her then pelting down the side of the swimming pool, and the fear that she must have had when she saw me essentially lying on the bottom of the pool, and the decision that she made to jump into the water after me, not to sort of try and get in through the steps. So I'm just going to jump in. And I don't remember her pulling me out, and I don't remember her holding me upside down, and I don't remember her knocking all the water out of me and me coughing it all up. I don't remember any of that. I just remember the octopus. And I also remember for the rest of the time that swimming pool was open, before they got rid of outdoor swimming pools and then made a big swish, swanky indoor one, looking for that octopus, swimming and saying, where is it? Where is it? And, and I was convinced, I was absolutely convinced that it was, what had happened was that I'd seen the painted octopus, that it was painted on the bottom of the swimming pool, and that, I must have, imagined it speaking to me, or that, when I was under there. Totally convinced. No one could convince me that it wasn't there. I just thought that no one else could find it. Obviously, it wasn't there. There was no octopus there, but to me, it was absolutely there. And that was one of my first ever experiences of a water spirit, and a childhood water spirit. And the thing is, I felt no fear. If anything, it was comforting. It was a comforting. Come in. And we were talking about that lure. It certainly wasn't saying, get out of the pool, you're not supposed to be here, you can't breathe. It wasn't doing that. But it was also saying, you're safe, you're okay. And we're talking about water spirits as being gatekeepers, and what their role is. And this idea that with Yeats's poem, there is a polarity. One of the things about water is that we cannot survive without water. Water is in our bodies, but we cannot survive in the water after we've been born. We start out in the water, and then we cross the gateway. And when we're having our human experience, we have to be out of the water in order to breathe. And I always think of these water spirits as being like mediators, the gatekeepers that support us in making that transition. And so I always think of the octopus as sort of saying, okay, so this human child, I have no sense of being lured by the octopus. Certainly I didn't feel afraid. But it was there to greet me and to be my friend, you know, during that time. So that was my first experience of water spirits. Suzanne says, thank goodness for the mummy feeling. Absolutely, thank goodness for the mummy feeling. You know, those things, there's good radar. It's funny because I know with my own children, whenever there is water nearby, there is this just ever so slightly tighten, a little bit of a tightening of the jaw. The radar are out that little bit more. No. And maybe you're right, Suzanne. Maybe we have that allure because we came from the water, and you'll see that there are so many poems about water, and there are a lot of poets and artists, like Virginia Woolf as well, will write about the water, and they will write about the lure of the water, almost this longing to return home, but this recognition that that journey home is ultimately a journey into death for us. But I think that water also teaches us that those gateways, you know, we are experiencing death every day in some way. You know, as one of my teachers says, she says, every time we sleep, we die and we're reborn in the morning as something new, and we move on. I was talking to my son just this morning. It didn't occur to me at the time when I was talking about it, but he has developed a very strong fear of death. He has a recurring dream at the moment. He's 6 and he has a recurring dream. It's interesting that Yeats talks about the water spirits giving the trout unquiet dreams. There's often association between dream and water, and he's having a dream at the moment and he's very afraid. And so I've been talking to him about it and saying, you know, the water in your body, and this is true for all of us, the water in our bodies, most of it is 4.5 billion years old. It came into being when our solar system came into being. Now, there are some theories that say that some of the water is younger, and there are some theories that say that some of the water is older, that it was pre-existed our solar system. But we know, and science has proven now, that most of the water that's going around us, apparently we're about 80% water when we're born. That goes down, it goes down to about sort of 60-70%, I believe. But when we're born, it's about 80%. Was birthed at the same time as the solar system. You know, as I was saying, that so much of you is already 4.5 billion years old. You know, it's changed and it's changed and it's moved through. You know. And we were talking about this, and we talked about all the different parts of ourselves, how we're made. Interesting fact, this has nothing to do with water, but it was a fact that was shared with me today by somebody who just knows so many things, and I'm like, oh, how do you know many things? Did you know that gold, every single tiny piece of gold in the world, the only way that gold can be created is when a star explodes? Every single piece of gold on our planet has been made by the explosion of a star. You know, so all of us is ancient old material. And so it reminds me, water spirits remind me that what we're talking about is transition. You know, we're talking about transition, and that's always a risk. We lose a part of ourselves and we move into a new state. And water brings us that. So that was my first experience with water spirits. I'm going to share 2 other experiences with you, perhaps in a little bit less detail. So one was when I went to the temple in Bath. It's a Roman temple to Sulis Minerva. But it's older. We know that it was an older site than that, and that there are... what are they? Have I got them close by? Yes, I've got them close by. One moment. Here we go. This is a replica of a plaque that's in the baths of Sulis Minerva that was there before it became even really a temple to Sulis. So we don't know who these 3 are. I work with them as my Disseer on the Nornir as well, but they're there. Very, very cool. So it's an ancient temple. And my friend and I, who this is Kay Gillard, who's a fabulous shamanic practitioner, we did some work while we were there, and we just said we want to connect with the most ancient of spirits that we can there. Boy, did we connect at that point. And it was this incredibly ancient, like water, marsh, bog, goddess, no name, no form, no nothing, just this primal energy, that was there. and it was so powerful, so incredibly powerful. And I think a few of you have said this sort of this ancient power. Tracy in particular, didn't you? You said these sort of majestic spirits. Really got this sense of the spirit of water and land before it was named, before naming, before we did that was there. And the third piece that I wanted to share was a piece that has been with me for a long period of time, and it's a more difficult part of my connection to the spirits of water, and it's a past life experience of being a spirit of water, or in a very loose form. Technically, it was being what I now know was a plesiosaurus. I hope I pronounced that right. Which is not technically a dinosaur, but was a water reptile. And I drew it, knew all about it, and drew this thing, and I was like, this is my experience of being a plesiosaurus, and all of this. And then I saw an episode about dinosaurs and ancient creatures, and I was like, that was it, that was the thing. And of being being outcast by my plesiosaurus tribe, and of the experience of water spirits as holding a lot of very negative betrayal emotion. It was quite venomous, quite this sort of sucking energy and the water and trying to sort of pull you back. It was almost this experience of oh yeah, you're on the other side. Yeats's poem of sort of saying, you were in the water and you were one of us and you went off and became human. How dare you? And I bring that in because I wanted to recognise that some of the legends that I'm going to talk about very much demonise water spirits. And I don't want to suggest that water spirits are all sort of lovely, sweet, charming, safe spirits, because they're not. They're natural spirits. So many of you have mentioned it. You've mentioned this sort of tricksiness, the risk that comes, these deep transitions. And in a way, I think about water spirits as being as mirroring. It's like that sort of as above, so below. If you think about the realm of air above and the realm of water below. Humans, we're not all good, happy, joyful, trustworthy in the extreme. Spirits, many of us are, I would like to think, and I'm sure that most of us who are here are. But, we all have our moments when we're not particularly nice to be with, and some of us are not nice a lot of the time. And I think water spirits can be like that as well. And we think about the memory of water. I was talking about water as being 4.5 billion years old. If you think about it in terms of the northern tradition, the water is like the waters of weird. It's the repository of memory, which includes the memories of things that aren't particularly nice or pleasant. And we also have the spirit of the wild, the red in tooth and claw nature of the wild as well, that draws us in. And so I think that allure that Suzanne mentioned can be the allure of our own wild natures calling to us and saying, you could remove this garb of being nice all the time, or of being civilized, all of those things. It says, we see you, we see your wild nature, we see your wild, hungry desires. We strip away all of that domesticated, tamed self. And underneath, the wild self, very powerful, but also a little bit dangerous. I think that one of the things that we're doing, one of the reasons that we're here, is to learn to balance those things together and to move between these realms. Is one of the things that we're supposed to be doing. So what I brought in that third story is an incredibly long healing journey that I could spend the whole time talking about, which I'm not going to. But what I wanted to recognise is that water, the spirit of water, can represent danger, and can represent, for me and for people who've done past life work with me and have channeled these spirits, some of the most unpleasant experiences that you can have. So, there is a lot for us there in terms of thinking about water and thinking about the way that it represents life, fertility, cleansing. What's the word I'm looking for? That will come to me, but never mind. all of these fabulous, wonderful things. We need it in order to survive, and we are essentially, we are water spirits. If you think that you're walking around and 60 to 70% of you is a 4.5 billion year old water spirit, okay? We are spirits of water, but we're choosing to have an experience on land. We're like water experiencing land, and changing because of that. So we can't live without it in us, but we also can't live within it. So when we talked about the poem, we were looking at risk. We were looking about also the way in which the water spirits can offer us beauty. There's an innocence as well, isn't there? That sort of you can preserve your innocence. You can not have that civilized veneer put over you. You cannot have all of the hard knocks of life that are coming, the spirits suggest, don't they? Come, human child, and be with us. Don't go out into the world. But if we think now about the way in which we work with water, that all of us, I think, Suzanne, actually, very good timeliness there. You sort of talked about, I receive so much downloading whilst I'm in the shower. I do exactly the same. It's one of the things that's on my needs creed, my list of things that I need, is to shower every day and to be in water every day. It's that real honouring, and I sing my Largus rune and I commune with it, and I feel myself at this point. It has this a fabulous ability to literally cleanse away all of the stuff that's accrued to us, and to cleanse it and to wash that away, but also to bring us deep wisdom from within. Perhaps almost like the water that's outside speaks to the water that's inside us and reconnects us to that conduit of power, and that's important. But if we think about it, we're really lucky. I'm lucky that I've got my shower, and that's brilliant. But what I want to suggest is, when we think about the poem and we think about the way in which Yeats was talking about the water spirits and the human children and the human world and the wild world as being separate. You have to be in one or in the other. That's quite true for us in the modern world. Wouldn't be true if you think about somebody living before we had pipes and taps and toilets, and so many of our rivers have been covered up now, and they've been culverted and are hidden from us. For the majority of human history, the water source, living by the water source, was the most important thing in your life. Where you got your water from. And in the world, that is still the case for some people. That the water source is the most important thing in your life, even more important than food. Because we can survive without food for longer than we can survive without water. And to be in relationship with the spirits of the water. Imagine like the octopus. I believe actually that one of the reasons the octopus was able to be there was because it was an outdoor swimming pool. And there was nobody about. The trees were there, and it was strong presence there. But we don't get so much. We can, if we tune in, we can get it from the shower, and we can get it from the water that we drink. I've got my water here, and I've blessed it with Largus, and I'll treat it in the sacred way that it's supposed to be treated. But we are not as conscious of it all the time as we used to be, and we don't operate in relationship with it as much. We don't think about it in terms of where I go and wash my clothes down by the stream, where I go and gather water from, where I cleanse myself. All of these things, that's where we got, and that's where we went. So when we did our washing, it would be a natural water source, and we would have that relationship with the place that we got the water from. Some of you, I don't know if you've read If Women Rose Rooted. It's lovely sort of theory offered towards the very beginning of the book about the way in which we've cut ourselves off from our relationship with water sources and from the spirits of the water who are there to guard that water and to receive our offerings, and then to ensure, for example, that our wells did not get poisoned or become stagnant or toxic in some way. And you can see how having a relationship with a water spirit would be so important in that scenario, to be able to say, yes, we need that fresh, life-giving, cleansing water. What we mustn't have is stagnant, poisoned water. And we would work with the spirit and give thanks for the spirit of the water that was our main water source, to support us in that. Just as if we were working within the river and we were fishing from the river, we would give thanks to the spirits of the water and the river for the offerings, for the richness of the water. And just as if we were travelling across the seas, we would make offerings for safe passage before we got there. We were in continual relationship with the spirit of water, acting as a gateway to offer us life. You know? That is what water does. Just as much as it says, I am the gateway of death, it also says, I am the gateway of life. Now, the rune Largus means water. It can also mean leek, like a plant, like fertility. You know? So it is a energy of life. So what happened then that we get these really tricksy energies, that we get this trickster energy? So yes, we've got this like this sort of deep primal energy, but it starts to change. So I said I would talk a little bit about water spirits. I'm going to share with you some things about water spirits right now. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we know, which is very little, really, about water spirits, like generic water spirits, let's say, that we can see linguistically, particularly in Northern Europe where they came from. So in Germany, one of the German words would be the Nix or the Nixie. Nix tended to be masculine and Nixie was feminine. And in Scandinavia and England, you had the same words, but they'd obviously changed and evolved. They all came from the Proto-Germanic. So the Nak, the Naki, the Nikor were all words for water spirits. If you had it in the Celtic, you would have the Melusine. In the Greek, you would have the siren. And you'll notice with the Melusine and the siren, there's the song, you know, that luring song, come into the water, my friend. I mean, in the Slavic, you would have the, I don't know the Slavic as well, so apologies, but I think it's pronounced Rusalka. I don't know so much about them. Now, what was the characteristic of all of these water spirits that I've mentioned is that they had human form. They might have been a little bit like a mermaid or a merman. They might have had the sort of human form on top and the water form underneath, but they were humanoid in the way that they were described. And we know from the fact that these words, although we know very little about the myth and legends associated with the Nix or the Nixie, we do know that they were shared across like multiple land masses, because so many peoples talk about them. They talk about them, and there is this shared etymology of spirits that you needed to respect, that could lure you in, perhaps with the voice, the sound of the sea. I always think about the sound of the sea, like the song of the sea, or the song of the river, drawing us in, like Suzanne was saying, almost like drawing us home, saying, come and cross the bridge over to the other side. Oh, you mean you have to give up your life in order to do that? Oh, it's worth it. It's so much better over here. You know, that sort of thing. You know, come home. It's a sort of feeling of what it's saying. And that a danger could come around that we could become enchanted by the sea. So we have that with the Nixie. We also have some who might not have been in human form. Yes, which was all the Sjora. So the Sjora were related, but were often considered to be, they might have been feminine in form, but we start to get a little subset now that includes things like the Kelpie, who are often considered to be in like horse form. So Sjora, we're not sure about the form, but Sjora means like mistress of the lake. It's Swedish. And so we start to get this idea of spirits that are like, maybe like sovereign powers of the water, so they can help us. You know, if we give them offerings, they can help us. They can look after the water. So we start to get a little bit of a reciprocity in relationship with them there. So you have the Sjora, which means mistress of the lake. Now, the Nix and the Nixie and all of those other words, Nak, Naki, Nikor, they all come from a root which originally is thought to have been to wash. You know? And I think this is important because this brings in this whole idea of cleansing, of washing. As Suzanne, you've just said Octopus Energies about rebirth. There is this sort of rebirthing as well, isn't there? It's this sort of washing and cleansing our clothes, cleansing ourselves, washing. You could think about it as like vegetables and things like that, like washing the mud off of them to make them edible for us. So they're benevolent. There's a benevolence to that. And there's a washing. You might also think about it in terms of the Irish things like the washerwoman at the fjord and things like that. We can still say that. You know, this idea of the washing, and Tracy saying, reminded of the mists of Avalon, these sort of ancient spirits of water who offer the cleansing energy to come to us, that we can see through the Nix and the Nixie, and then we can see through the Sjora and these spirits of water, you know, that call to us and can be dangerous, and that we have to respect and honour. And then we get another set of water spirits, and I find this interesting, that come through, and I don't know, because it's very difficult to trace them, but they come up in folklore and they tend to be named. So the Nix and the Nixie, all we have is this idea of like washing, and the Sjora is like the mistress of the lake, and these are shared terms, these aren't individuals. But now we start to get local water spirits who are given names. And so we have Jenny Greenteeth, who's come up, and we get that, you know, and it's sort of like quite a familiar, isn't it? You know, Jenny Greenteeth. So like Jenny, it's like the neighbour, might as well be something, you know, the woman next door, but with the green teeth. So there's this, interesting. That's not a human thing, is it? So we're being told, and she's not human, she's got her green teeth. We have the Grindylow as well. And I'll come back to the Grindylow because that's an interesting one. And Tiddy Munn, with all of these different names for spirits that were associated with particular bodies of water. A lot of these come from like Anglo-Saxon Britain, not exclusively that, a lot of them come from them. We also have things like Old Father Thames, and that's a relatively modern term, but it makes them familiar somehow, doesn't it? It somehow makes them more familiar. It might then make them a little bit more threatening in some ways, and certainly with these there is a warning that comes along with them. It's like Jenny Greenteeth will get you, Tiddy Munn will get you. You remember Yeats's poem? This Yeats's poem, although it's written much later, is bringing in this idea of warning, like children in particular, that they'll get you. You know, if you remember me toddling along, la la la, you know, I'm going along my swimming pool, I'm getting in the water. You know, if my mum hadn't had the little, you know, bells going off, I wouldn't be here, and it would be a much more tragic tale, and you wouldn't heard about the octopus at all. There's a threat that we start to hear, and I always find this quite interesting because I think, well, when we come on power and we have risk, you know, there comes a point where we say, okay, we're going to start to build stories that seek to control movement or to control relationship. And I think this is happening in two ways. So when we start to get these stories of Jenny Greenteeth or the Grindylow, we are both somehow making the spirit of water smaller and safer with the naming, but we're also making them more into like monsters. So a later meaning of Nix or Nixie or the Nak or the Naki is water monster. By the time we get into the Anglo-Saxon Nikor, it's brought in the term water monster. That's not originally, it comes from wash originally, but it becomes water monster. So they become cautionary tales for children. But I think they're also forming I think this is a magical act that is performed by humans on the spirits of water. And this is just my theory, this is my belief. And if you think about all of the tales of Fae and Alfar, the naming, knowing the name of a spirit, think about Rumpelstiltskin, gives you power. And so if we name and we shape and we catch the water spirit in its form, we say, oh, Jenny Greenteeth, So she's got that name, Jenny, and then we've described her as well, green teeth. You know, there's a trapping of the water spirit, I believe, through the naming process. So this is why I wanted to mention the Grindylow, because the Grindylow, again, we don't know a huge amount about the Grindylow, but it's thought that it is possible that the tale of Grendel from Beowulf, of Grendel and his mother in particular, that Grendel may come from the same root. We're not sure about that, but it's a possibility that's been cited. So Beowulf is a story that it's an ancient tale. It's an ancient tale, but it was still recorded and written down at the time when Christianization was coming along. So I always try to take this with a pinch of salt, just a little bit. Grendel's an unpleasant character that Beowulf is able to defeat, but then he has to go on and he has to fight to defeat Grendel's mother, who is filled with vengeance and venom because he has taken her son from her. You know, you remember I was talking about those water spirits and how angry they can get when what is theirs is taken from them? You left us, you betrayed us, you know. He's taken from her. And she is cast as being this, you know, almost demonic being. I find Angelina Jolie's portrayal of Grendel's mother particularly interesting, those of you who have seen the film. No, she has this sensuality. She has the lure of the water spirit within her. She's in many ways far more dangerous than Grendel, who is portrayed as being sort of unpleasant. But she can be like deeply unpleasant as well as dangerous. So I really like that portrayal. But it reminds me, Grendel's mother reminds me of the presence that I felt when I went to the baths, the Roman baths, and met with this sort of ancient water spirit. And I thought, as human beings have sought to culvert and control and send our water sources underground, we have equally sought to name and demonize and make smaller the spirits of water. It's my belief that they were, bridge keepers. If you think about my octopus, who, yes, might have been like, yeah, it's your time, you're coming into the water, but were there to guide and support us. That they are benevolent when we are in sacred relationship with them, and equally that they probably don't like it very much when we are not in sacred relationship with them. So anything that we can do where we're having our shower and we're offering thanks to the water is a good thing. But I believe that at this point in time, human beings, these are spirits. The water spirits are spirits that we must have relationship with, unless we want to continue to blind ourselves to our own wild natures, to disconnect ourselves from the world. And our treatment of water spirits is a very, very good example of how we have sought to build a story around ourselves, of one where we are in control, we are dominant, we don't need to be afraid of nature anymore, and we are not part of nature anymore. We're separate from and we control nature. And so rebuilding these bridges, opening these gateways, speaking to the spirits of water is incredibly important, and not always that easy. So anything that we're doing where we say, I'm going to work with my water glass, I'm going to work with my shower. Now, I'm very lucky that I can go and I can see the river that runs near my town, but I have tried to find the old water sources that go underneath the town here. Very, very difficult indeed. I think I found one. It's incredibly difficult to find these old water sources because they've been covered up and built over and diverted and ignored and sent underground. So any way that we can do this work of honouring water spirits, of going out to the ocean, of going to rivers, of starting to move back into sacred relationship with water, is going to re-establish that relationship. But one of the things that I wanted to add into that I think is important at this point is an act of what I'm going to call unnaming. So it's almost going to the spirits of water. I did this with my octopus, and I've done it with my water spirits, my sort of like sister water spirits, my Plesiosaurus. I've been and spoken to them, and I've done a ceremony with them of unnaming, saying I unbind you from these names. I recognize that you are not these names. You are bigger than these names. You are more than these names. I do not seek to name you, because I do believe that the act of naming over time has been an act of magic performed on humans by the spirits of water that has allowed us to think that they're not important to us, and has got us into the bit of the state that we're in right now. So my invitation to you is to think about that, and perhaps do the same for your own rivers and your own water sources. Now, is first of all to, if you know that they've been given names, is to say, I unname you. I recognise you as more. I do not seek to control you through this name. And to release that, allow that to go back to the water, and perhaps to let go a little bit of our desire for that naming. Now, this is the sage part of us, that wants to name. And the sage isn't seeking to damage or control. The sage wants to know and understand. And perhaps the spirits of water at one point were quite flattered. We were given names and described, and this place of play between the song of water and the song of humans. Could have been a very beautiful, fertile place. But then slowly over time, I believe that our words sought to control and eventually to belittle, to the point where we might read these tales of water spirits and sort of go, how fun, and totally miss the point of how powerful water spirits can be. So we need to allow our sage to let go, and our seer, who can connect back into the body, back into ourselves as ancient water spirits, and say, there is so much more to me than the named part of myself speaking to you right now, and to everyone who's on the screen right now. There is so much more to you. The water that is moving through your body, that is coming to know you, that has been connected to the spirits of water for so long, is now moving through you. That's the part of you that needs to connect with the spirits of water at this time, not the part of us that seeks to name or control or know on the conscious level. That's why I brought this piece while we're doing an exploration of the seer self. So I hope that this has been useful to you in terms of thinking about our relationship with the spirits of water, and our relationship with water both internally and externally. And I would invite you to feel into that piece around naming. We are going to be looking at more like deities associated with water. We've talked largely about spirits associated with water through the course of today. We're going to do a session looking more at deities associated with water as our next piece as well. But I hope that this piece has been helpful for you, and a reminder that we have our Reclaim the Seer retreat coming up on the 7th of May if you want to connect more deeply with that part of yourself that is connected, deeply connected, beyond where words can take us, and knows that deep level, that ancient part of yourself. Then I would highly recommend the Reclaim retreat. Thank you very much to those of you who have joined me live and who have shared your thoughts in the comments box. Trace saying that the reminder of the Miss of Avalon, and S saying I'm reminded of the Lady of the Lake, Nimue from the King Arthur tales. Yes, I can really see it, especially with the Sjora, and that transition point where you'll notice she's not named. She's called like the Lady of the Lake, and that's there's a reverence about that, isn't there? And it's that point at which when might she have become belittled in that way. And yes, although it's very much seeking the Celtic mysteries, which are, are not my personal thing, much as I love them, they're not what I teach. I would recommend If Women Rose Root. It's a really interesting book and does so much more justice to this idea of the lost relationship and what that means for us today. So I definitely recommend that. And Tracy said, Jenny is a female donkey or ass. Thank you, Tracy. So yes, there's whether it's a familiar term or whether it's a desire to almost, if you think about like the steeds of the sea, that's what they used to call ships, steeds of the sea, this idea of the horse or the mare, and then becoming the donkey or the ass. It is sort of somehow this desire to make smaller. And then Tracy saying, so we're speaking for releasing our own names back to the water. Interesting. That wasn't what I was suggesting. It is really interesting, Tracy. And it's not the practice that I've done yet, but it is one that I am considering doing, is releasing the names of my ancestors back to the water. It does remind me, and this is obviously, but it does remind me that one of the first water source that I ever really knew and worked with, I didn't even know it was there, and it ran under my house. So it came down from the burial mound. There's an Anglo-Saxon burial mound and a church on top of it, and it flowed down the hill, and then it went just past my house under our driveway. It's actually, at the moment, it's really high. There's a flood at the bottom of my parents' garden where it's sort of releasing, and they're digging ditches to allow it to flow through. And I do think that well, certainly I know there were a lot of my experiences that came from my seer self. I could see and feel spirits moving down that hill and following the course of the water. So I do think that if we think about releasing our dead to the water, that a process of unnaming, of releasing from the name, is just as important as a process of naming, which is how we welcome a child into the world and into human society. So when we name, we're saying, come out of the water into our world. So we could look at that in terms of our ancestors, if we feel as if there's part of them that hasn't been able to be released back. But I wouldn't necessarily, unless you've decided I was given a name that I do not want anymore and I want to release that, you could release that to the waters. But we do want our names in order to stay rooted in our human selves. Very important part. I teach a lot about this on A Drazzle's Path and my shamanic program, about the power of naming and why we need it when we journey into the other worlds. Okay, so that's a little bit of an aside, but I hope that it was helpful. Tracy saying we're in flood mode here too, river up. Yeah, indeed. So, it's a good time for us to recognise the power of water. So thank you so much, everybody. It's been lovely to see all of you, and I look forward to exploring the seer with you more and more through the course of this month to come.